2021 was the first time that I came here, but I didn't come for the conference first. I came for the awards first and as effectively a mentor. So I taught a workshop on confidence, on clarity to the folks who volunteer. I think that's such an amazing part of the enrichment that TEXSOM offers is all the behind the scenes education and programming that the folks who decide to come and volunteer, they get. That was a really good entree in actually, because I felt like I got a little bit behind the scenes before the big one.
And I think that is really true. I feel like everyone I've talked to, it's on the face like a conference in which you learn things related to wine or other beverage, but it's the behind the scenes that's really fascinating because it's really developed a core community of people in the wine trade who are learning to grow professionally. And so, coming and talking about confidence and how to gain place, right? To move forward. I think that's the kind of thing that I don't know that everyone's thinking about doing things like that. Ciao, y'all. I'm Jessica Dupuy, guest host for a special TEXSOM series on the Italian Wine Podcast, covering the 2025 TEXSOM Conference in Dallas, Texas. Join me in the heart of the Lone Star State as we dive into conversations with key speakers and attendees, exploring career paths, challenges, and the latest trends shaping the wine industry today. This series is proudly sponsored by the Texas Department of Agriculture's Uncork Texas Wines program, which celebrates Texas wine culture by promoting local wineries and grape growers, both in-state and around the world, building a vibrant community around the Texas-made wine. Be sure to subscribe and rate the show wherever you get your podcasts. And don't miss our Texas wine tidbit in every episode, a fun little fact, insight, or story that highlights the people and places behind this exciting wine scene. All right. Well, Maryam, welcome to the Italian Wine Podcast. I know you've been here before, but not with me. So this is different.
I'm excited.
And also welcome to TEXSOM. I know this is not your first, but I'm excited to have you as part of this special series on TEXSOM 2025. I wonder for those that, aren't familiar with who you are and what you're about, if you could kind of give us a refresher. Who is Maryam Ahmed?
Yes. Who is she today?
Yes.
Thank you for having me back.
Yes.
I loved my first interview. I love this podcast. I would say for the folks who haven't listened to the other episode, important things to know are that I am a Napa-based full-time consultant. I own my company, which is called Maryam and Company. So easy to remember. We create education programs and think tank spaces for food and beverage clients, as well as for private sector businesses looking to connect more deeply or intentionally with food and beverage. Okay. It's a very niche consultancy, but I love what I do and it's all word of mouth and it's working. So why change it?
What does that look like though?
Yeah.
Tell me what's a client and what are you doing to connect them?
Yeah, there's some larger scale clients. I know we may talk about one, but I'm the program director for the Wine Writers Symposium.
Okay, yes.
So as an annual client or annual conference, I also contract with the Culinary Institute of America for various projects, one of which is their annual beverage summit. And then smaller or sort of quicker clients are, I'm coming to Napa. I have a group of executives or leaders that are grappling with an issue. Is it possible for you to relate the issue to wine or a conversation in wine? And usually the answer is yes. One of them was a group of people who own mattress stores and washer dryer stores that are dealing with multi-generational takeover and the impact of technology on their stores and foot traffic. And I was wineries are dealing with that too. Yeah. We can do that, no problem. So it's really fun. I like the challenge and the creativity in the work to make something new every time, but having the through line be wine and food sometimes.
How did you get to Napa? Because that's not just if you're not from there, usually you're going there for wine. How did that happen?
Well, sort of, it's a wavy road, I guess. I'm from upstate New York originally. Okay. I went to Cornell for my undergrad in hospitality, but I was a pizza girl when I was 16 and fell in love with this idea of multitasking and making people happy. Yeah. Hospitality is great for that. And that kind of led me to going to Cornell. And I studied beverage and beverage operations while I was there and went into distribution. Okay. So I was in New York City for a couple of years and loved it, but I really saw a lot of stories falling through the cracks. And at the ripe age of 22, felt like I can fix that issue all by myself. But in order to do it, I have to learn the language of the winemaker, who at the time, this was in 2011, at the time, a lot of these smaller regions had winemakers that were also the ones selling the wine, the ones, selling at the tasting room or at the distributor. You know, and just wearing a lot of hats and not necessarily being great at all of them. And so I went to winemaking school, went to Walla Walla.
Really?
Graduated in 15. The whole time I was there, helped people with like their staff education, their customer education, experiences, events, because I loved it.
Yeah.
And it was like support that was needed. And I feel really lucky because it meant I got to work with a lot more wineries, especially like I wasn't from the West Coast. So it was digging in really quickly. And then when I graduated, this really cool job became available with the Culinary Institute. I never envisioned myself in Napa. I wasn't expecting it, but it was to oversee all of their food enthusiast programs at the time, which is what it was called. So all the programs that took what the CIA offered in academia and offered to the industry and made it bite-sized or digestible for the consumer. And that was like majorly my role, I think, in a lot of these spaces I was in was how am I translating? And so it was just perfect timing, was kismet. And then I've been in Napa since. I moved in 2015.
Wow.
So,
and you live like in Napa, the city, or okay.
Yeah, I live in the city of
Which
Napa.
has grown so much. Like it's such a vibrant place to be. That's really cool.
I think people would say, it used to be like a one stoplight town. I mean, they used to say about Walla Walla when I lived there. But it has changed. And I think also it's exciting because where, the valley is so beautiful and there's so much to see and explore, being that first city or that entry point isn't really any longer the place you skip over. It's the place you start. And so we do see a lot more vibrancy in the city of Napa and Napa generally because we're this gateway now.
That's right. Really cool. That makes sense. So tell me about how you came to know TEXSOM. How did you become involved? When did all that happen?
Well, I started coming to TEXSOM post-COVID. So I know about all the changes that have gone on and like the fact that it's at this new, really amazing space here, but only contextually do I know about it pre-COVID.
Okay. And you heard about it?
Heard about it, definitely. And at the time, I was still working with the Culinary Institute. I hadn't launched my business yet, which I launched in 2020. Naturally. And so like I was doing a lot of programming myself on behalf of the Culinary Institute. And so I never got to get here for the conference before COVID. In probably sometime late 2020 was when I was introduced to James. And in 2021 was the first time that I came here, but I didn't come for the conference first. I came for the awards first and as like effectively a mentor. So I taught a workshop on confidence, on clarity to the folks who volunteer behind the scenes. And I think that's such an amazing part of the enrichment that TEXSOM offers is all the behind the scenes like education and programming that the folks who decide to come and volunteer, they get. So that was a really good entree in actually, because I felt like I got a little bit behind the scenes before the big one.
Experiencing the real deal. And I think that is really true. I feel like everyone I've talked to, it's like, on the face, TEXSOM, even the TEXSOM Wine Awards, right? Which happens usually
February, March.
Moved it a little bit.
It's changed. It's springish.
A little bit. Springish. Let's say springish. It's on the face like a conference in which you learn, education things related to wine or other beverage. But it's the behind the scenes that's really fascinating because it's really, developed a core community of people in the wine trade who were learning to grow professionally. And so, like coming and talking about confidence and how to gain place, right? To move forward. I think that's the kind of thing that like, I don't know that everyone's thinking about doing things like that,
Definitely.
So this year in particular, you are here, you were part of a speaker panel to talk about, you could probably remember the title better than me.
It's called Living Your Values Through Work.
Thank you. I'm glad you said that. I was going to say values, living, work. So what was kind of the thought process behind that particular seminar? I might have spoke to Kat Thomas already, but what were kind of the ideas to come that y'all wanted to bring forward in this? What were the highlights? Because I know it's one thing to prepare and then it's another thing to experience it and get questions from the audience, et cetera. So.
Definitely. I think, I can't take credit for the topic because James reached out to ask if I would moderate it. And I'm always happy to do something in that vein. I think it's so important. And I think like having a conversation about values at a beverage conference is something that I didn't experience early in my career. So I'm really happy to like see that it's happening. I think behind the scenes, James was thinking about, what are these different facets that people work in and how do they show up and what can happen if we put them all on stage. And so I think that was his thinking. So our panelists were Kat Thomas, Jessica Waugh, Thomas Price, and then Ren Pierre. It was a great group of people. But my hope, at least when we were preparing, and I think we achieved it, was we can't have a conversation without values, without knowing what our values are. So Jess led a really great exercise on just getting really clear really quickly on your values under this time constraint. You've got to tell us, what are your top, get to your top 5. And where are you out of alignment? Like if these are your top values, ask like, do I need to do some tweaking? Whether that's at home in my personal life or at work, right? And then I think the other thing that I was really hoping people will walk away from is understanding like all of us up there, we have different work structures. Some of us are entrepreneurs. Thomas is in academia. Ren is running an amazingly successful concept called Babe Wine Bar. And there's just a lot of ways you can achieve living your values through work. It doesn't have to be like one recipe with the same outcome. And I felt like that was really important, that we help people walk away with knowing they could explore different pathways with the values they identified. Everything else is like a cherry on top for sure. I was really pleasantly surprised at the engagement and the level of like trust in us to lead an exercise that's a little bit vulnerable, in the middle of a conference about wine. And I think people really leaned in. And I've been stopped a few times to just be told that having just the time to realign or revisit values was really great for them.
So. What were some of the things you were hearing from the audience in terms of like, I hadn't thought about this, or I really think this is important? I mean, because it sounds like if Jessica was walking them through, and her background's like in I can't even say it, but like neuro pathways, like she focuses a lot on how the brain function works and how that applies to whatever occupation you're in. Yeah, exactly. Definitely. So what were some things that you were kind of either surprised or maybe heartened to hear from the audience?
Well, I think right now in this moment of wine and the world, it's like not easy to stay positive. I think all of us on stage, of course, are trying to infuse positivity, and we do believe in the work that we're doing, but it's not easy. Sometimes it's harder than other things, than the easier path. But I would say that like something that surprised me, of course, is like we were approaching it from that respect, but then at the end, someone was like, I'm in for the hard stuff, but can you tell us like everyone share like one win or one thing that brought you back to your values because it was such a reward. And that it was like a moment to also remember that like everything is still moving forward, even sometimes when it feels like it isn't. So that was just a great question to get at the end, and a very hopeful and optimistic one, when I think sometimes right now it's easier to find pessimism in things, you know?
Based on what you're seeing in the wine world and being specifically in Napa Valley, kind of what is the vibe? Like you said, I mean, we won't bring this all to doom and gloom, but like, what is kind of the feeling? We talk about tariffs in Europe and things like that, but I know a lot of Napa producers have strong relationships or had strong relationships with Canada, right? And that's been really a tense time. I don't know. Just what are you seeing?
I don't think Napa is an exception to wine regions that are experiencing this intersection of like culture change, climate change, and the political landscape. I don't think we're an exception to the rule. But I do see like our valley is a weather vane, and so I do think there are things that we're struggling with. I just think the general day-to-day expense and the nervousness around inflation and cost is hitting us pretty hard. And I think the contraction in the market is hitting us pretty hard too. That's the reality. I think it's hitting a lot of places hard, but you see it when you live in a place that's everyone works in the wine industry. You see it. So I find that to be a big shift. I would say though that like being on the precipice of what feels really scary is like when you see the people who double down, I think there's a real attractive nature, a magnetic nature to that. And so I think some people will rise to the occasion and come out on top of this, that those that stay really true to their purpose or their identity and brand, and like who continue to do the right thing in a tough moment. At least those are the brands I'm supporting. Those are the brands I know my community is supporting. They'll differentiate. Like it's gonna work itself out, but there's gonna be change first. Definitely.
I mean, talk about a time to need to evaluate your own values and how you're gonna live that out in your work, right?
Sure.
Like interesting. So tell me about, you've got a new project. It sounds like it's what is the word? Gargantuan product, very large, that you're kind of finishing up or breaking ground. You tell me.
In the
middle of it all. Okay, in between, you've broken ground. Tell me about this project and kind of how it might speak to some of what's going on in the community.
Yeah, well, it's called Plate Kitchen. It's with a Y, like plate, kitchen. And I've been working on it for a couple of years now. Well, it's really 4, it feels like 2, but 4. And I have 2 major partners, and we have 2 minority partners and myself. And so we are offering hands-on cooking classes to folks really within Napa or the Valley, and then also, of course, tourists and both private and corporate groups.
Okay.
And I think what is important to say is like, we still see a lot of people who are excited to be in the Valley that come there. I mean, we're also featuring a lot of the local chefs and purveyors and doing as much as we can to boost the local economy through our business. But we've been doing it in a really small space. And so the big thing is that we're moving into a new space, 2,600 square feet compared to 600. So it's a really big scale change for us.
Yes.
And the glamour of ownership of, scrubbing floors and painting ceilings and doing them back again and again because you're doing one after the other.
Yeah, I love that you were saying that because ownership is a lot more, right?
Yeah. Oh. But it's exciting because, the business runs really well and sort of in continuity with Maryam and Company, where I've got an amazing partnership. I love my team so much, and they really get it that it's about more than food. It's about food being a quintessential social ingredient. And I think they know, like, for me, wine is a vessel in the same way. And so like the three of us really work hard to make sure that those stories are incorporated and those connections are made. And I think for us, like, just creating this space where people see that we have an all electric kitchen. It's a very sustainable approach. And we're only using as much local, like a huge amount of local as we possibly can, so that people understand that we can have an economy, a community economy.
Right.
I'm really proud to open a space like that, and then to bring some of the programming that Maryam and Company does into that space too.
I love that. That's really good.
So exciting.
And then tell me about the Wine Writer Symposium. How many years has it been going on?
So since 2008. So we're getting close. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. It's so amazing. I've heard so many great things. I have to tell you, I have to be honest with you. I was going to apply a couple of years ago, and it was like, I got intimidated by the process. I was like, I'm not sure that this is where I should be. Like, it was a weird,
That's good to know. No, it's really good feedback.
No, not in a bad way. It was just more like, well, because I'm not a starting writer, right? I'm established, but also
you could use it too.
That's, I was going to say, like, but it's nice to be able to go and have just a focus on that, right? Because so often, especially as a freelancer, you're in your own bubble of pitching, writing, gathering information. It's a constant cycle, And so, but it becomes a cycle in which you often feel very much alone, So definitely. Anyway, so I was going through this process and I was like, I don't know, maybe I need to wait. Maybe I need to ask some more questions before I do it. So anyway, I didn't apply, but I'm coming this year.
Well, you're coming this year, which is very exciting.
It's very exciting.
Some things that have changed quite a bit. This is going to be my 9th symposium.
Okay.
So I was part of the symposium as on the board of directors as an employee of the Culinary Institute of America. And then when I launched my business, it was really amazing that the Napa Valley Vintners called me and asked me to stay on and support the program.
Yeah.
And so it's been a client of mine since 2020.
That point,
Yeah. And so we've done a lot to kind of change, I think, some of the accessibility for sure.
Yes.
And the board members have been a huge part of that, including our writer board members like Dottie Gator and Elaine Chukan Brown and Clive Pursehouse, and just these incredible people who have helped us transition into this space of recognition that it has to feel accessible, and it also has to serve the community of day in and day out wine communicators and wine writers. And so there's a balance there. And so one of the things that we've done is, like, one year, it's sort of every other year, one is virtual, one is in person.
Got it.
And so it used to be every year's in person, which is an amazing thing that Meadowood Napa Valley offers, is bring these fellows, have them stay at Meadowood Napa Valley and retreat there, really get into their work there, which is great. But it's not a way for us to be able to serve the community at large, which we identified having in 2020 when we transitioned, well, really 2021, we transitioned to virtual to continue to serve the community.
Right.
So now we go back and forth every other year. And I think that helps us with, of course, achieving our mission of creating accessibility, bringing in emerging voices to the conversation while still serving those established voices. And so to bring it all the way back around to you saying, TBD, should I apply or not?
Yeah.
I mean, for me, like, I love a speaker, and I'll just be honest with you, I love a speaker that's like, I would come as a fellow. I could get as much out of it.
Yeah.
Sometimes if not more, if I was in this fellow headspace. And so I always, anytime, like, especially someone's coming for the first time to speak, I'm like, it doesn't mean you can't come back as a fellow.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
Why not use this resource, you know? So I'm very proud of the program, and I'm proud of the evolution, instead of kind of burying our heads in the sand on the fact that the world is changing and the wine world is part of the world, and we've got to like really make some considerations. It's difficult to freelance full time.
It's extremely difficult. I was going to say the changes just in the wine writing sphere and what's happening in media means you have to be creative and you have to really hustle. You know?
Definitely. And it sometimes means like you're writing, you have a consistent byline and you have a 9 to 5.
Yeah.
And you have to write for a brand. Like we have to be really mindful that it's not how it used to be.
It's not traditional anymore.
Right?
Yeah. Exactly.
And if I invited only book authors, we would have the same symposium over and over again, you know, I mean, with very little change. So it's just important that we have all these angles included, and even embracing and understanding better the digital landscape.
Yeah, no, I think it's really good. So I don't want to leave without, you know, talking a little bit about the fact that this is the Italian Wine Podcast. So let's talk a little bit about Italy. Have you been?
I have been.
Okay, good.
I studied abroad in Florence when I was in school. Yes. And I loved it. And then I was in Sicily last year and I get to go back this year. In like a few weeks, I'm going to Etna.
We were talking about Etna days coming up. I know I'm going to miss it this year. I'm so sad. I hope I can.
I'm bummed you're not there.
I'm sorry. Hopefully next year. Yeah. Finishing up, you know, a big project and needed to really just focus. So every once in a while, y'all, we have to like really be at our desks. But I'm super glad to hear that you're going. But tell me, you know, just so between the bookends of studying abroad in Florence and then, you know, going to Sicily in September, tell me a little bit about how Italian wine has maybe influenced your journey in your career.
My gosh, I'm sure in more ways than I could even like say right now. I mean, there's philosophies for sure. Okay. I think maybe I'll start there. I do think there's just so much more connection to the land and to agritourism. And I definitely think that drove some of my early interests in how do I translate this to maybe a broader experience or help people connect a little bit better. And agritourism was a huge part of that for me in the beginning. But I think like philosophically, when I think about Italians and like attitude toward life and just a problem even, it's like, I think on the side where it's like the dimmi, like it's very direct. Just tell me so we can figure this out, right? But be clear and say it. I love that about them. I love that that's an attitude for sure. And then on the flip side of that is also just like one of my favorite Italian words is certo.
Yeah.
And this idea of just like certo, like we got it. It's easy, of course. Clear. Like let's do it, you know? Got it. And I like that. I think I operate a lot in that space. Yeah. But I can totally identify with, you know, also being on a boat near the ocean and eating gambero rosso and sipping a delicious caricante. And I believe in that lifestyle too. Yeah.
I think that's great. And I hadn't even thought about it from that perspective, the overall kind of culture of the people, which, you know, you're talking about Sicily, right? Like I spent 5 weeks in Alto Adige this summer, very different culture, technically, but all still Italian. There's this common thread that I find really beautiful that binds that culture, whether it's between food, wine, and just everyday life, you know? Yeah. Well, Maryam, I'm really glad that we had a chance to catch up.
Our first meet.
I know. It is our first. I was going to say, I learned so much about you. And we get to do it live, or at least, you know, it recorded. So I'm glad that you got to come to TEXSOM this year, also in a speaker capacity. I feel like a lot of what you have to offer people is just a reminder that what we do day in and day out, like does have a purpose as long as you choose to give it purpose, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think it's kind of a beautiful thing. I hope that you enjoy the rest of the conference. I think we've got just the grand tasting tonight. It's almost over. I know.
Diversity and opportunity.
Oh, that's coming. Yeah. Were you part of that when you first came, your first time around? Because they've been doing it every year for the past 3 or 4 years.
I think we started it in 22.
Okay.
I want to say. And yes, I've been supporting it since we started, just giving a space to the orgs that are doing a lot of really important work in the industry.
Yeah, bringing things to light. Yeah. I think it's really beautiful. It is a good, usually quick reception. But so thank you for coming. I hope we'll see you again sometime. But in the meantime, I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll keep drinking Italian wine, I promise.
Oh, always. Yeah. Certo. Here's a Texas wine tidbit about the history of Prohibition. When Prohibition hit the United States in 1920, it wasn't just the beer halls and whiskey distilleries that suffered. It was also the small but growing wine industry in Texas. Vineyards across the state were ripped up or abandoned, and for more than a decade, making and selling wine was illegal. But a few families found creative ways to survive. In Del Rio, for example, Valverde Winery, founded by Italian immigrant Frank Quaglia in 1883, kept its doors open by producing sacramental wine for churches. That lifeline allowed it to become the oldest continuously operating winery in Texas, a distinction it still holds today. Other growers turned to selling grapes and juice directly to families who were legally allowed to ferment small amounts of wine at home. It was a quiet rebellion, but it kept grape growing alive until the ban was lifted in 1933. Even when rebuilding wasn't easy, many vineyards had been lost, consumer habits had shifted, and the Texas wine industry would take decades to recover. But the grit and resourcefulness of those early families set the stage for today's revival. So the next time you hear about Texas wine, remember, it carries not just flavor, but a story of survival. This series is proudly sponsored by the Texas Department of Agriculture's Uncork Texas Wines program, which celebrates Texas wine culture by promoting local wineries and grape growers, both in-state and around the world, building a vibrant community around the Texas-made wine. Be sure to subscribe and rate the show wherever you get your podcasts. And don't miss our Texas wine tidbit in every episode, a fun little fact, insight, or story that highlights the people and places behind this exciting wine scene.